Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
I'm your host, Con John Turk, and on this episode of the Blind Apex Podcast, we are talking about the typical path to wheel racing and the skills you probably should pick up along the way. Because it's a pretty broad topic, I have two guests today. Joining me, the guy in the blue sunglasses, the pro-ish hot shoe driver, GLTC champ, YouTube sensation, and professional podcasting co-host of the Lizard Brain podcast, Tom O'Gorman. Second, we have the drift boy from the Northeast, part of the Low Buck crew chief turned Honda Challenge rookie, Emanuel Hernandez. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Yeah.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, man.
Absolutely. You guys come from two different backgrounds. Everybody has a different background, but we all sort of follow the same path to get there. Generally speaking, it's like an autocross hpde time trial, and then we go wheel to wheel racing, but there's a lot of different disciplines in there and we don't always take the same path. Manny, let's start with your background and how you got into wheel to wheel racing, because I know it's not typical.
Alrighty. So first and foremost, thank you for having me. It's really cool to have this opportunity.
Absolutely.
My background, I've been into motorsports since I was little, like almost everybody. But I really started with drifting, and that started at around 2013, 2014, in my senior year in high school. I come from Puerto Rico. There's a really big motorsports scene there. Sadly, we don't have many tracks available to us. To that point, there were 3 tracks available, and now we're down to 1. So
yeah,
it is really
not good to hear for our sport.
It's a niche. Yeah, but it makes the driving really competitive.
Okay.
Like, people there can wheel. Like, I don't know if Tom might know him, but there's a few drivers that are from Puerto Rico and IMSA, like Sebastian Carrazo or Victor Gonzalez. But yeah, back to the point. I started with drifting, and then throughout COVID, I had the opportunity to come to the Northeast via job. I am a mechanic by trade, and that's how I got involved with NASA as well. So the transition went really from drifting, competitive drifting, and then to just HPD and track days in general.
Awesome. And you went to comp school this year, right?
Yeah. Correct. So that's what I was getting at next. Thanks to my very good friend, I think of him as an older brother, Dylan Brennan. You guys might know him as EJ True Track Rat. He was kind enough to loan me his car to be able to achieve the dream of getting the comp license. And there's future plans for next year to hopefully go racing.
Awesome. Tom, do you want to give everybody a little bit of your background? I'm sure most people know it already, but
sure. Yeah, I'll try to do a little condensed version. First of all, that's super cool that Dylan lent you his car for comp school, Emanuel, because Dylan was, I believe, if he was telling me the truth, he did his very first track day ever at an SCCA track night I was working back in, I want to say 2015. And to see that he's taken to grassroots motorsports and built a community and now is feeding that to other people is the coolest thing ever. So yeah, I started mostly as a fan of motorsports. My dad was taking me to Mid-Ohio since I was in diapers. He always had cool cars, but it wasn't until my cousin discovered autocross and then kind of told us about it that we became participants. So I was 15, 16 years old. This would have been 2007-ish that I started competing in my own autocross events. They were super local. They were actually the Austin Healey and Alfa Romeo Club of Cincinnati events. And through my cousin, I found SCCA national competition really quickly. That led to like 7 years of really intense national competing in autocross. And once I won my first national championship after those 7 years, I decided to kind of take all the money I had saved and try road racing. I did 1 year of regional racing with SCCA and then crowdfunded a campaign to do a couple pro races that I had bought a Honda Fit for. And that kind of parlayed itself into a factory drive with Honda for a handful of years until COVID. And I've been sort of working in motorsports for myself and for others from 2015 before I started as I started road racing till now. So it's basically become my life and my career and my passion and my hobby and all that stuff combined.
Yeah. For those that don't know, you're also on the Lizard Brain podcast, and you guys talk about some of the greatest stories, and you guys put real thought into some of this stuff. So I really appreciate your podcast. And I don't want to short you at all, but you also coach. Are you still coaching these days?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my 100%, job. I basically work for myself. Okay. I'm a driver coach full time. And when I get a chance to drive and compete myself, I do. But, this year's probably spent 90% of my time driver coaching, which has been an interesting transition because a lot of it has to do more with being a teacher and a companion than it does to have to do with being a good driver. Like they're almost exclusive of each other entirely. So learning to transfer my skills that I know behind the wheel into being an educator almost, and being at points you're being a therapist and a companion and a friend and a supporter and all that stuff. You kind of have to like relearn everything, but only through the lens of I know how to drive a car, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I appreciate that because DJ and I wanted to make a podcast for drivers. There's so many car podcasts, but a podcast for drivers was harder to find. So I appreciate that you guys enjoy it.
Yeah. Initially, I was going to do this as sort of a defend your motorsports discipline. Maybe I'm getting soft in my, being 50 something episodes in, but I decided through listening to like you guys on Lizard Brain, the track walking guys, just all the motorsports podcasts that are out there, that I really shouldn't be beating up on any one of the disciplines because everybody comes from different places in life, right? Like you started off autocrossing, I started off autocrossing. The first time I hit the track, I was never going back to autocrossing, never ever. But some people don't have that option. Sure. They don't have enough tracks in their area. So autocross is the only gateway they have. So I can't really put them down. Now I bought an autocross car. I bought an 8th gen Civic. They were building it for autocross. They were out of the Louisiana area. They were planning to go to pro solo with it, and COVID and stuff happened. But every time I post and they're like, you didn't win, this car's so fast, you should win automatically. They always bash me because I'm slow. And what I learned is, as I've been developing this car, it has nothing to do with me being slow. I'm not saying I'm fast, but the car is set up differently because it has to be driven differently, and you had to learn different things. So, Tom, do you want to get into a couple of the skills a driver needs to have when they go to autocrossing?
Yeah, for sure. I always find it interesting that it is viewed in the way you laid it out, that you do autocross first and then track days and then time trial and wheel to wheel. And I think they're all equally legitimate in their own ways, but,
okay, stop there. Can we argue this for a second?
Yeah. Bring it on.
Okay.
We definitely can.
Going up through college and then having roommates and then all that jazz. My roommate used to call his autocross car his race car, and it drove me nuts.
Oh, no. Okay. Go ahead.
I mean, but there's people that have street cars and they call them their race cars.
So my thing is, I don't know how to explain it. Autocross is a competition. HPDE is not a competition. Time trials is a competition. Hill climbs, competition. there's ice racing, different sorts of ice racing, right? You guys talked about doing ice racing. It can be different. Drifting, it's a competition, not a race, even though you're door to door with them in tandems, right? So there is the line between competition and racing. Racing is also a competition, but not all competition is racing. And that's why I sort of think there's a hierarchy. And I get a lot of crap for that. So
well, okay, I'll put an asterisk. I think they're all legitimate in their own ways in the outlet of being like a car person or a driver, but I totally agree. If you're doing anything but on a racetrack racing and you call it racing and it's not your very first day, you're being obtuse, and stop it.
Amen.
There you go.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All of the disciplines are necessary, really. Like they all share similarities.
Yeah. And they all take, you can start learning things and then you'll stop. If you go through the traditional progression, and maybe we'll talk about this, there's things that you start learning and then you forget or you put on the back burner and then you pick it up again, or you have to change it. So, now that I derailed everything, Tom, do you want to get to a couple of skills you need as an autocrosser?
Sure. So yeah, what I was going to say, in that they're all legitimate, is I'm super grateful for having done so much autocross before I went on a racetrack, really. And I did maybe 3 or 4 track days during the 7 years that I was autocrossing, but I was so heavily focused on autocross that I was almost not paying attention to the other opportunities in motorsports. And for a little while I resented that, but then now I look back and I'm really grateful for it because of the skills that I built. And I think the main one that is super, super important is good autocrossers have to become masters of weight management and weight transfer. And there are other forms of motorsports that happen over, call it further distance, fewer turns, whatever, that doesn't ask as much of the car in such quick succession. Honestly, the closest is probably drifting, but autocross is, you're required to use the weight of the car to get the car to do things that if you were just driving around at a static speed without as much weight transfer or just relying on the grip of the tire, the car couldn't do it. So you end up learning kind of a rhythm of what the weight needs to be doing at all times that other forms of motorsports don't require quite as apparently. And then there's obviously the whole like learn the track within 1 or 2 or 3 runs that they lay it out in front of you. You know, that kind of goes to that explanation. But if you can learn the layout of an autocross course very quickly, just visually before you even drive it, and then you can apply your understanding of weight and momentum to that course through you know the inputs that the car needs, you start to be able to understand what the car can do at a next level that's more than just a driving line or brake points or turn-in points, you know, that tend to be driven home a lot on a road course. And then you layer that within the context of wheel-to-wheel racing. For me, wheel-to-wheel requires a lot of autocross skills in that when you're going side by side with somebody and you maybe can't have the ideal driving line, but you need to be able to like maybe hold the outside or hold the inside, whatever it is, you know, split a gap that you don't normally have to drive. An autocrosser is super comfortable with driving somewhere they haven't driven before, relying on their ability to read the room they have and what the weight of the car is doing and maximize that to the most that they can within 1 or 0 tries. Like the very first time you try it, it has to work. So you're side by side, you've outbroke the other person, but you have to run the outside. Autocross teaches you that skill in a sort of abstract way that you can drive this completely new, quote unquote, new track. And you'd never have seen it before, but you know how to get the most out of it. Versus a person who just laps and laps and laps and laps, and they might have the best line. They may understand all the perfect scenario, breaking points and all that stuff. Once you put them offline, they might not know what's going on. So that's why I think autocross, especially when it comes to wheel to wheel, which you wouldn't think in the first place, but I've thought about it a lot, has really helped me a lot.
Yeah. To me, it's where, if this is your gateway, the vision that you need to have is a big thing. So, they still do track walks. So when you go to an autocross in the morning, they'll let you walk the course, right? But you really don't feel, with experience you will, but initially you're not going to know how much speed you're really going to carry. You're just going to learn, okay, I need to go left, I need to go right, I need to go right again. It's a sweeper, it's tight, it's a U-turn, whatever. But to me, that path, learning that path of where you need to go behind the wheel, you're right. That skill, that vision that you have in the car going, okay, I'm here, car's on the inside, car's on the outside, I need to put this car in between them or do whatever, and I got to make it work. That starts way before you get to a wheel-to-wheel track. It can start. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I know wheel-to-wheel guys who never autocrossed before, and they're still good at it, but it's something that you need to pay attention to. Yeah, you're not on the perfect line. You're not on the perfect surface. You know, that's something autocrossers deal with every day. Every time they go out, the surface isn't perfect. You know, maybe they blow it off, maybe they don't. But one way to find out on the road course when you're going wheel to wheel is, you know, if you're offline, sometimes things aren't that great out there, and you got to learn to manage it. So, yeah.
I think there's also a level that, I mean, autocross, I think all forms of motorsport require it, but I think autocross and probably stuff like rally and drift force an additional level of like visual diligence. Like you have to be looking where you want to go. On the road course, you have so much time to think about and see where you want to go. I don't think it pushes it as much. Maybe stuff like, you know, drag racing and stuff. Obviously, you don't have to do a whole lot of that, but autocrossers and people who are dealing with these things that come in rapid succession build really good, like foundation layer visual habits that you're always looking where you want to go. You're always kind of like 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of the car, that it becomes so natural at this point. Like, I don't think about where my eyes are looking ever. It's a natural instinct of where everything is around me that I need to end up, which I think also translates to driving on a racetrack. Like, to your point, being side by side with somebody, if you're looking in the right places and you understand the momentum and the weight of the car, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be at an advantage relative to them.
Yeah. Manny, have you done an autocross at all?
I have.
So,
yes, I have.
Yeah. So what input do you have for us? What kind of skills do you think they need to have or focus on?
I have some controversial opinions.
Let's go.
It. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie. But everything that Tom said is spot on. You definitely need memory and retention to be able to know where you want to go and be able to, like you said as well, imagine, okay, this is how much I can brake here before I need to accelerate. And you got to figure out where the weight is going to go, right? Now, I disagree a little bit in terms of two things. Could be 3 really, but I'll focus on 2. Tire management and inputs. In an autocross, you're trying to get the best time that you possibly can. You're destroying the tires. Input-wise, since you're focused on getting the car point to point, it may not be as smooth, and that's not necessarily with the steering wheel. The steering wheel can go, but if you're not smooth with your braking inputs or your gas inputs, you might not be as fast as you possibly could. Now, there's an argument to be said. I've done autocross as smooth as I can and as point and shoot and quick as I can. And there is, from my experience, 3 to 5 tenths of a second in the way that you change your driving style. In an autocross setting, it's easier and faster to do the point and shoot style rather than float a little bit on the gas or threshold brake a little bit, because you want to, like Tom said, make sure that the weight of the car is pointed somewhere. That way the car can actually hook and go. Now, in terms of wheel-to-wheel racing, the main place that I can tell you that would serve an advantage is if you're trying to set up a pass. You could be behind somebody. You can poke to the left, poke to the right. Depending on the distance, you might have the reaction to pop out behind them and be side to side with them. That doesn't necessarily mean that you may be able to make that pass stick, because like both of you said, you might get into a situation where you might be offline and you don't necessarily have the best surface to hold that line.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And I think what we're all getting together is the car control. We're learning car control in the autocross setting, but we're exploring things. When you're manipulating the car's weight, you're forcing that car to do something it may not actually want to do, or you're making sure that it does it when the setup's not optimal, right? I know when I was doing autocrosses, we weren't messing with knobs on shocks. None of us really had that stuff, but we were definitely messing with the PSI on the tires. We were beating up tires. You're right. We were murdering tires. It did not matter. Whatever worked, we were just trying to get through it as fast as possible. But everybody said smooth is fast, smooth is fast. I think my hands were always smooth, but you're right. My gas to brake movements, I still don't think they're smooth enough. So I'm a big masher. So at least my car has ABS now.
I think that's an interesting point though, with the smooth is fast, because I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions with driving that is kind of like bled through the whole like HPDE instructor vernacular. And if you look at someone who's really fast and they're driving the car really well, the person is not necessarily smooth, but the way the car is hitting the ground, meaning the contact patch from the tire to the ground, is always smooth. Mm-hmm. So I think when someone is told smooth is fast, they perceive that as my inputs to the car need to be smooth. And obviously there is a level to that, but there's a way to make your inputs whatever they need to be, and they can still be smooth to the ground. So I don't subscribe to the smooth is fast mentality when it comes to the driver's inputs with my hands and feet. I don't know how to necessarily fully help somebody translate what they're doing at the wheel to being smooth through other than like experience. It just takes time to understand the things you can get away with. I had this really interesting experience autocrossing with my co-driver in IMSA at the time, Kenton Cook, he has autocrossed. He's a very good autocrosser, but he's come through road courses. And we reviewed our video. Mm-hmm. I had beaten him by more than he was happy with. He's like, what the hell? And we're reviewing the video, and we noticed that his hands would kind of stop at like a 90 to 100 degree steering input. And there were times that my hands were like past 180 degrees. And he's basically looking like, you're doing these inputs that are insane to me. And it's because I know, to Manny's point, like you're not managing the tires. You're not doing anything other than trying to go as fast as possible. And I learned for 10 at that point, 12, 13 years, that I can get away with these crazy inputs for a moment and bring it back. And he's trying to be smooth. And, mm-hmm. and it didn't work in the context of autocross.
Well, that's something that drifting really teaches you. Drifting is an interesting motorsport because no one driver will drive the same. And there's many visual and sound cues that will let you know. Now, the easiest way that I can probably relay this information would be, and this is how I teach my students in HPDE to have a little bit of car control. Obviously, we can't do it. We're not face-to-face, neither of us. But if you put your hand up, right, and you hit the hand, like you high-five them, the hand pushes back, correct?
Yep.
But what happens if you just touch the hand and push it? It gives you time to react, correct?
Yes.
So say you're overshooting your braking point and you feel that the brakes are starting to lock up, you slightly let off the brake, and you might get front grip again, and you might be able to turn the steering wheel in. Now, as soon as you go on the gas, if you mash it too hard, your rear end is going to snap. This is imagining it's a rear-wheel drive car. So you might counter steer and correct it, but you don't fully mash the throttle. You ease into it, and even if you overcorrect a little bit, let go of the gas a little bit, and the steering will come back, and you'll be able to carry that momentum.
Yep.
Now, granted, that's not necessarily smooth, like Tom said, but it'll ensure the full contact of the tire and the weight of the car being displaced evenly.
Yeah. I hate to go over this analogy. I haven't heard it in 10 plus years since Dan Unkefer passed away, but he used to do the friction circle. Okay. So you have the front tires and the rear tires and a circle that goes in between them. And as you go into the braking zone, you know, it all loads up on the front. And then as you start to turn right, it all loads another direction. And then, so what we're saying when you want to be smooth and have that car control is that friction circle transition needs to be smooth, but what you're doing in the car is however you need to do to get it there. So,
yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing.
3 different
honestly.
ways.
I'm not disagreeing with anybody.
Let's move to HPDE, because I think most of us, well, not many, but most people, went to autocross and then we were like, you know what? I'm going to go to HPDE. And I can tell you, I've never looked back. I have not been back. No, that's not true. I went to my college car club, did an autocross. I went to it. I was awful. And when I was doing autocross, I wasn't bad. My vision for the cones and reading cones was gone. I had none of that left. And I was like, yeah, somebody drive my car. I'm going to hang out, you know? But Manny, let's talk about, since you do instructing and stuff, let's talk about some of the key things that we need to work on in HPDE.
Actually, I think if I have it here, I'm not totally sure. This might be a stretch. I really hope I have one of those handbooks.
Right?
Your Honor.
Audio podcast.
We have it.
Oh no, he brought out the NASA book.
The logbook.
Yeah.
Well, just in case if we want to, like, this one's completely blank, by the way. Doesn't have anything. But just if you guys want to, like, specifically talk about one skill in general or anything, because it'll range from 1, 2, 3, and 4, you know. I think the biggest one for me is track awareness. It's very interesting to see people getting into the track for the first time and thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, there's so many cars around me and I don't know what I'm doing. So the biggest thing that I try to teach people is look for the flags and look in your rearview mirrors. That's the most important things you need at this stage as a pure beginner. Because I don't want people holding other people up, and that way we can all have a good, clean session and everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, to me, that's the change in vision, right? So when you're on the autocross course, you're looking at the cones, you're reading the cones, you're looking ahead, and you're trying to find your path. I think the inputs from your eyes need to quadruple, probably. You need to know where you are on the track. You need to know who's coming, and you need to know all the corner work, where all the corner workers are and all the inputs are coming to you. And I see it fail in wheel-to-wheel course. Like, every race weekend, somebody blows a yellow flag.
Dude.
These guys have been on track racing forever.
That happened.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
So one of the things I do, or one of the things I try to preach, is warm-up laps, start sighting in. I'll forget where your marks need to be. You should have had those beat in a long time ago, lap after lap. I want to know, is the turn 2 bucket manned still? Because sometimes it's not, I want to know where everybody is. I want to know, is there a corner worker that's dropped a debris flag on our warm-up laps? I want to know where they are. And then when I'm done with the session, when we're done racing and we're cooling down, I want to wave to every last one of them, because I'm beating it in my head that I know where they are and I need to be looking for them. But because they miss that all the time. But this is where the vision changed, right? Instead of being very focused forward, ahead, like you are in autocross, you have to bring that 360 view to you. And that one's really big to me. Tom, do you have anything to focus on?
It's a lot of...
No, go ahead, Manny. That's fine.
Yeah, it's a lot of information to take in as a beginner, purely speaking. As you're going up, you should, like you said, wheel-to-wheel racing, you should be looking at the flag stations. That's your first and most vital information source as to what's happening around you. So you definitely want to keep those eyes up and know where they are at all times or what they're doing at all times.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you would highlight for HPD people?
So there's the biggest thing that I'm, by the way, I know it's super late into the conversation, but I really enjoy your podcast in the sense that it's very informative for everybody. Like, you could be very beginner, you could be very experienced, but it's very informative. So I really appreciate that. In terms of other skills, car control, man, you've harped on it time and time again, and it's finding the limits of your car in a safe environment. Dylan touched on it. I've heard it purely by just listening to the podcast. We were having a conversation about our different teaching styles. One of the things that I'll do is I'll have people I'll space them out. Like, I'll try to be the last one in grid with my student. That way we have somewhat of a clear track in front of us. And in the main straight, I'll be telling them, hey, go as fast as you can and brake as hard as you can. That will teach them how good their brakes are, how their ABS will trigger, and how much stopping distance they actually have. And in another sense, I'll teach them how to accelerate hard in a very, very low speed corner, depending on their car. If it's rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, or front wheel drive, their traction control system will behave differently, but they'll know what to expect. And that way they can be a little bit more confident without me in the car.
I can honestly say I was never pushed with an instructor in the car that hard. And I think there's a level of self-preservation that instructors have, generally speaking. I don't knock them for it. But I don't believe the same, for me personally, the car control skills that I need as a race car driver. I didn't learn those in HPD. I had to figure it out on my own when I'm solo, which is fine, but things were a little hairy, Tom,
but
go ahead, Manny.
But here's I'm not saying that I'm doing it like very brash and brazen, right? Like I said, I'll space it out, and I'm not telling them go 160. I'm just trying to put them in situations with me in the car in very low risk setting, because that way they have a sense of what to expect when they're by themselves. The risk goes up exponentially when you're doing it by yourself. Like, and it's even better in a track. I learned on the street, and that's not the best thing to say and admit, you know. But you can definitely screw some stuff up doing dumb stuff on the street.
I went to Pick and Pull to pull suspension parts for my car because we did some dumb stuff.
Yeah, but now Tom can attest to this, and you as well, because you raced. You want to trust the guy who's on your inside or on your outside and hope that he can control his car going from 120 to 80 miles an hour into a corner, right?
Oh, yeah.
We make that safer by teaching people a lot earlier in their progression.
I'm glad you're doing it. I hope more people do it. That's all I'm saying. I didn't get it. So.
I got you.
Tom, you want to give us some things to focus on when we're going through the hpde ladders?
Yeah, I mean, this is the step I kind of skipped, which I feel I'm fortunate to. But I think I probably did 4 track days before I did my first race. But then it's interesting because I skipped it as a driver, but then I came back to it operating track days when I was running Track Night in America and running other track stuff. So I have a little bit more of a lens as like a track day manager and like instructor than I do as a participant. But to me, this is the one that's like hpde is non-competition. So with it being not competition, in contrast to autocross time trial wheel to wheel, it implies that you have a lot of time and you have no pressure to take your time with stuff. So to me, that's when you absolutely, I was doing a little quiet golf clap when Manny said like flags and mirrors, flags and mirrors, flags and mirrors. When I was working track days, it's like, I would be completely blunt with like my novice groups. Like, I don't care how fast you go today. I don't care what your fastest lap is. I don't care if you get to be faster today. What I care about is if you are paying attention to the flags and your mirrors, because you have to be paying attention to everything around you. And that is, to me, the most important foundation of operating on a racetrack, because you guys have said there's so much going on that, in my opinion, and this is not what actually happens, but in my opinion, you should be able to rely on your peripheral vision and your lived experience by the time you get to time trial or wheel to wheel to function on a racetrack with everything just being a complete reflex. Like it's not something you think about. It's not something you're looking around for flags. You're not paying attention to your mirrors actively. It's just a passive level of operation that you're just so comfortable with that you're just now able to do everything else. I kind of wish people were a little harder on that. As far as my own experience with this goes, like the biggest thing I struggled with was paying attention to gauges. Weirdly, like I wasn't used to paying attention to gauges on the dash and everything. And then, an early instructor that I had in the car with me, at one point he surprised me. We were at Mid-Ohio. I was in my Miata. He's riding around and we're like, lapping. And down the back straight at Mid-Ohio, he goes, "All right, what's the color of the car 3 cars in front of us?" And I was like, orange. And I don't know if I was lucky, if I was paying attention, but it was an orange Shelby. And I got it right. But to have like, to Manny's point, having somebody in the car with you to like kind of hold you accountable for how aware you are, I do think there's some importance to that. I don't know that I agree it's the best place for raw car control practice, but passive car control practice, yes. Outside of that, I think it's the best place to just take your time to get so comfortable in that pool that when you get to any other level, it feels the same. When you go on track for a time trial or a wheel-to-wheel race, it should feel the same as a track day because you're so aware and comfortable in that environment that it's not overwhelming. It's not stressful. It's just, this is the same as the rest of them,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I strap in, we roll off grid, and by the time I'm around to take the standing start, I'm calm. And you need that. You can't be nervous. You want to be so familiar. You want to be so comfortable in that car on that track, when you go to compete, you have to start doing that there. When I was in HPD with my instructors, without my instructors, I would get nervous. We'd go do a warm up, and then take the green flag. The longer I was in HPDE, the less nervous I was by the time we took the green flag.
Yeah.
And I think it was my level of comfort in the car, in the situation, being aware. But you have to work on that. I think you guys killed it with that one. That's so huge. One of the other things I think that people do in HPDE, and it may just be more of a lap timer than anything else, is I think people start looking at data for the first time, especially the long timers that are doing like group 3, group 4 stuff for a while. They start to really look at data for the first time, and that sort of sets them down a path, whether they're going to stay there, whether they're going to be instructors, whether they're going to try to compete. I really think that's where that little tidbit.
I really hate that. I really hate people who, all right, hate is a strong word. I don't like when people focus on the times, unless it's a competition, like an actual race or a qualifying or something to that nature.
Well, let me play devil's advocate.
In HPD,
I'm a HPD 3-4 person, and my car is a 90% Honda Challenge car, and I'm like, you know what? I think I want to go race. I can pull up Race Hero and find out what the boys are doing, what the guys are doing on track. I have no clue if I'm about to get run over.
Sure.
You need to be somewhere in the ballpark. And I've done this a million times. I've recited this a million times. I already know what our rookies are going to run. They're going to run a 220 at VIR in full H2 trim. And then when the race hits, they're going to be at like a 217, 218. Happens every single time. Now, the front runners are running 210s. But you can't be, there's people running 230s that think they're ready to go racing, and that's not close enough. For
sure. There's a difference between DE pace and race pace. Like there's 100% night and day difference. There is ways, like you said, with Race Heroes to gauge like where you can be. Now, I have a very, very interesting example, and funny enough, it's with Dylan. I have videos somewhere. Me and Dylan, we can go karting, and it'll be a competition. One day he'll beat me, one day I'll beat him, and it's never ending, right? Because you can be fast, but there's going to be an off day for sure. Everybody has an off day. And when you get to racing, 9 times out of 10, almost everybody will bring themselves up to the same pace. But in DE, if you're trying to get a lap time, it's not going to serve you any good when you transfer to a race, because it might be a completely different car. Now, going back to the example, me and my street car that I use to have students in the car while I'm in DE4 in the instructor groups, I'll have Dylan in front of me, and he'll run laps on me in his car. And you can slowly see where, like, how he takes off just because of the difference in the car, not necessarily the difference in skill. Dylan is a really great driver, but the difference between a H2 Honda Civic and a Genesis Coupe with full interior and barely anything done to it is night and day difference.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the guys who are the folks, not guys, terrible at that. The folks that are looking at, they've been it for a while. They're invariably, there's so many lap timers out there. Harry's lap timer, Ames are getting cheaper. The used market is crazy. everybody loves the Catalyst because you can get a video download in a couple minutes. Everybody's going to it. I see it in all the cars.
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting their lap time, whether they're in the Genesis or somebody's H22 swapped hatchback that all it needs is a cage to run, in some race group. They're going to run times, and I see them start that now in HPDEs. So,
yeah, I think you guys are thinking of a similar scenario from two different, not extremes, but the HPDE driver that is singularly focused on their lap time to me is scary, which is, I think, kind of what Manny's talking about, right? Like the guy that just wants to go as fast as possible, because that's the mentality that tends to not mesh well with a DE group. But on the flip side of that, the driver, what I was going to say, what I forgot to say earlier is because DE is that non-competition environment, it is a time to take the whole session. And if you look at the drivers who do time trial or wheel to wheel, that is not a race. A lot of times those drivers don't take a whole session. They're kind of already at the point where they're like, they either know what's going to happen or they know what their fastest lap could be, and they get close to it and they know the car's burning down at that point, whatever. So for someone who is in DE and able to take a 20 or 30 minute session and just focus on being consistent, and you're within 4, 5, 6 tenths of your fastest lap for at least 3 or 4 of the laps, that to have data to back that up and have something to support both that you are consistent and have been doing, some semblance of a good job in the car, but also be able to review where you could do better. I think it's really important to have that resource. But if you're a DE driver who is not competing and you're singularly focused on a raw lap time, I think you're in the wrong mindset.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think you said it better.
I can agree with that. I see it in the cars all the time. So
yeah,
I think it's just a skill they're trying to learn, whether we think it's valuable or not.
Totally. And to the point, where else are they going to learn it? Like, do we want them jumping into competition? Right. No, if they're not quite there. So I think it's good to encourage people to have it, but then it also takes the community around them, us, to say like, hey, it's not the singular lap time that matters. Or if they're there, you're like, dude, you're fast. Like, let's go to time trial, or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best way. Sorry.
Yeah, my buddy Adam, I was like, you're way too fast to be in the DE group. When your Civic hatch is running down, C7 Corvettes, you have to, one, stop pouring money into the engine and let's put some more safety gear in this car. And then 2, you need to put it into a competitive environment. Excuse me. The one other thing that people need to, it's sort of off that vision thing that we talked about earlier. The other thing is we're in HPDE, we're learning to be close to other people. Now, wheel to wheel close and HPD close are very different, but we go out in HPD groups from time to time. And I had actually fall finale was in November. We had somebody come up to me and go, "Man, you were way too close to me." And I was like, "Well, you were on the left side of the track. Did you want me to go all the way to the right side of the track to pass you?" And he was like, "I don't know. I just felt uncomfortable." And I'm like, "We're in group 4, man. Like, I didn't touch you. I couldn't reach your mirror. We weren't that close. I've been way closer, but some people aren't ready for that. But that's where they start to learn it, right? Even when you give the point by, sometimes they come in a little tight. Okay. But that's one skill that you need to be aware of, and comfort level you need to start to obtain.
It was fascinating working track days and teaching people to communicate point buys to the car in front of them, because in my, like, I'm a broken race car driver. Like, I'm going to literally cram myself on the back bumper, up their back muffler until they move out of my way. Right. But that isn't exactly what I want to teach or like say. So it's like, if you can maintain that like what you think is good on the highway, or maybe a little closer, that generally was like kind of right. It's like, just get that close and stay there. Don't try to run back and get a run. Don't try to like get alongside them to make your point. But I think you're completely right that there's a level of proximity on a racetrack that you have to become comfortable with, especially as you get towards, DE4 advanced group, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But I was going to kind of make that point with the time trial section as well. Like the TT stuff really because it is competition, there's a level of expectation of everyone knowing what's going on that you have to have that functioning base level at a racetrack.
Yeah. So let's talk about the TT stuff, Tom. You say getting close to people on a racetrack in TT. I think that's absolutely true because everyone's trying to get their optimal lap time, right? So one of the big things for me is in TT, I think they start to learn their how to be fast in their less than optimal line.
Well,
excuse me.
I mean, hopefully not. Like in a perfect world, this might be controversial. I know you guys both run NASA primarily, I think, anyway. But I think the SCCA time trial culture is the best at this, in that the primary goal is to use the out lap as a more of a gap lap than to bring the car to its optimal condition lap. And the gap lap is singularly focused on making sure that you do not catch the car in front of you on your first flying lap. So if you're in a powerful car and you're behind a slower car, but that you make the same lap time, the powerful car sets itself further back for the front straight, versus if you're in a Miata and you're running the same time as the Corvette in front of you, you can be right up on them for the front straight. And then you're going to, it's the whole thing about like managing this space that you need, which I think is critical in wheel to wheel racing. And understanding that momentum and that interaction between the way cars make speed and understanding the space that you need on a racetrack to get your job done without impeding the other cars. That's where I think hopefully proximity doesn't come too much in play in this, but being comfortable enough to have a car within proximity to you, be able to trust that they're doing what they're supposed to do and that you, kind of have the space to do what you need to do. And then also learning how to disappear. Like, I think a massive skill on a racetrack is being able to be invisible, like the Formula One drivers do in qualifying. 9 times out of 10, they're very good at just disappearing, and the other cars around them don't get impeded at all. I think time trials should overemphasize that more than it does in basically all categories in every competition group.
So you brought something up that's pretty interesting. GLTC, not GLTC, Grid Life, they rank their time trial groups by time or anticipated time.
Yeah.
So they're usually pretty similar in lap times, or the spread isn't that wide, and then they space them out in a certain manner. And you said SCCA gives them a warm-up lap and they space out that way. NASA doesn't do it that way. And there's plenty of other time attack. I don't know how they do it. NASA is basically like, it's hpde, line up where you are and get going. And so, and be aware if you're looking to go into time trials with NASA, that's how they do it versus how other organizations do it. I actually think that could be a big hindrance to some people. They may not be able to game the system in different ways just because of the way things are set up. But
time trial in NASA is very interesting because, like you said, it's like HPDE but with open passing. And this comes back to the earlier skills that we were talking about, track awareness and vision. And this goes to wheel as well. Multi-class racing is a thing. If you can do your best to know where you are, know where the cars around you are going to be near you, you can still maintain your lap without impeding theirs. It's just a matter of positioning yourself correctly and let them have that space for them to just fly right by you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's our NASA perspective. I think, I don't think they're definitely. I'm trying to remember the last Grid Life one that I watched. I don't think anybody passed anybody, And I believe they specifically changed some of the things because of maybe Sunday Cup was doing too much drafting. I think that's what it was. But so, yeah, I mean, folks were getting a tenth of a second off the draft and winning. So they changed their format up. So not based on format. I think when you go to time trials, this is when, I hate to call it a race program, but that's what I always call it. So this is where your race program starts. Your trackside checklists start to develop. Because I don't know anybody in HPD that's got a checklist unless they used to be a racer and now they're a gentleman driver in HPD.
Honestly, though, that's a great point. They kind of should.
They probably should, but your trackside checklist, maybe it's something as simple as what are your tire pressures, did you torque your wheel lugs, right? Getting simple stuff up to.
That's very important.
It is.
That is very
when we go
important.
wheel to wheel, like, so I'm a massive planner on the off season and in between events, but at the event, I'm sort of just winging it. And my goal in 2024 is to stop winging it and get more formal with it, just so I can not guess my tire pressures and not worry about certain things. But I think that can start in time trials, that trackside alignment. You're going to start doing that. You better start hauling those tools around, you want that 10th, you may need to bump some camber out or bump some camber in, things like that. That sort of at track race program life, I think that really starts something that you need to pick up and learn in time attack. Excuse me.
I think this is an interesting point because this is where I don't know, Tom, I'd like to know your opinion on this one, because I think you're more on my side on this. I try not to focus too much, and this is coming from a technician. I try not to focus too much on the technical side when I'm driving. Before I even try to fix something with the car, I try to fix it with my skill. Then, if I can't do anything to make the car do or respond how I want it to, then I'll tweak it. Not before.
Yeah, I follow. I'm the same, and I'm putting it lightly, not a technician. I have very little to no mechanical abilities when it comes to a car. So
no, you have a YouTube series on that explores your mechanical abilities, Tom.
My prowess, I like to say.
Yes, yeah, prowess.
I just have zero of it, and to the point that I genuinely don't like doing it, so I avoid it at all costs. But I think there's a middle ground. So when it comes to prep, I learned a huge amount when I went from autocross to wheel to wheel right away. And within 2 years, I was working with, it was a friend of mine who's my engineer in pro racing. And I learned a huge amount from him. Andy Hollis, if you guys have seen him, he writes for Grassroots Motorsports and stuff. And he had a checklist for every session. They had a setup sheet, a set down sheet. They would go over the car every session. This was stuff I don't even know how to do, let alone would have been doing in the first place. But to have a checklist of some sort where you're keeping track, like you said, to tire pressures, literally just like have a checkbox for that you have enough fuel in the car. There's a base level of operation that you have to know that the car is okay. Beyond that, I totally agree with you, Manny, that you need to focus on the driving first. And as long as the car is drivable and consistent, just leave it alone for the most part. And then you can, until you get to the point where you're going to know along your driving journey when it's time to really start messing with stuff on the car. But for the most part, I tell people, whether you're in HPD or time trial, if you're able to run within the same 3/10 for a majority of the session, or within, that amount of time, and then you finally are like, I really want to touch the car, then it's okay. It's just not worth prioritizing the car over yourself past that really base level of car maintenance and session by session upkeep. That, like, it was hilarious to me when I was working track days. The number of people that run out of gas on their last session. It's just like stupid stuff like that. Yeah, always, right? And it's always some guy in a V8.
We have racers that run out of gas.
Right, and it's always some guy
racers
in a V8
that run in
that has never gone through that much gas in his life. And all of a sudden, like I used to have a Camaro. It would go through a quarter tank of gas every session. Where else does that happen? I don't know. I keep track of that stuff.
Yeah. I'll expand a little bit more on that. Preparation is key. That's what I mean with the focus on the driving. The way I look at it is the car should already be ready once you're at the event. Like, if you're racing, then that's totally different. You might want to get a 10th here and there. But even then, and you, John, you can ask Dylan on this. I was hesitant during nationals for him. I told him at one point, listen, your job is to drive. My job is to work on the car. I will do whatever you want. And this was obviously prior to the races. This was during like practices and qualifying. I wanted him to get very, very comfortable with the car first because the work had already been done. Now, if we needed an extra thing, then yes, we can do it. But first, try to get yourself acclimated to it. And I'll give another example for comp school. We didn't touch his car other than maintenance. I drove his car completely set up in his liking and drove that car how the car liked to be driven. I adapted myself to his car instead of me trying to make setup changes. Granted, there were different goals to be accomplished. My realistic goal was just to get the comp license. But then again, I didn't do bad either.
No. So we're right at a little bit over an hour right now, and I still want to talk a little bit about some of the other types of motorsports we participate in. Tom, have you actually gone ice racing, or did you guys just drive around on a really wet and semi-snowy thing last year?
Oh,
Were you guys going to like a circle track?
No, I've driven on the ice a lot. We have frozen lakes all over where I used to live that we were on the ice. It's so
that's gotta be beautiful.
So cool. And then in addition to that, yes, the speedway that you've seen that we covered in snow, or that was covered in snow, we used.
Yeah. So what in ice racing do you think you could learn? Because we never know when we're going to have opportunities to do stuff, right? Somebody may be like, hey, Con, I got this quarter midget here. You want to go in and run it at a circle track? And I'm not going to say no.
Of course.
But I want to know, what should I look for when I go, if somebody throws me the keys to their ice race, Impala that's clapped out and bent and got studded tires, what should I be looking to learn?
And it probably would be a clapped out Impala.
Yeah.
So like, I'm a huge believer that every person who's in motorsports should do some sort of palate cleanser every year. So if you're an ice racer, you should go on a road course every year. If you're a road course driver, you should go to a drift event once a year. Like, you need to do something that breaks up your rhythm just to challenge you to kind of get out of your box. So when it comes to ice racing specifically, ice racing is really interesting. There's two kinds. There's rubber and then there's stud. So rubber ice racing, obviously snow tires. It's a huge amount of mistake management because basically you have no grip. So once you sort of get up to speed, which takes forever because you have no traction, you try to just keep it there, and you're sort of seeking for loose snow, loose ice. Like, you're looking for that powder everywhere. And you're also looking for the ruts in the snow. So you're not necessarily driving the fastest line of what you know of the fastest line. You're not necessarily looking for like things you can control. You're looking for literally the surface underneath you to give you the best that it can give. And then managing, mistakes past that, because it's so easy to overdo it or lose that momentum because you just can't get it back very quickly. Stud racing, where you actually have like, you know, the sharpened studs that go into the ice, that is so fascinating to me because the car, it still can't really brake all that well. It can kind of accelerate, but the majority of the grip is generated by friction, which means the most interesting part is the majority of the deceleration happens based on like pitching it sideways and just slowing the car down with resistance. And the overall goal is to get the car as sideways as possible coming into the corner, as late as possible, so the car slows down really, really aggressively, but it then is also pointed at the exit of the corner based on that like pitch on entry. So you have like a super sideways entry and a very straight exit, which is like a totally different thought than like driving on a road course where it's like hard threshold brake, turn in, and then like rotate the car towards the exit and pick up the throttle. And that was a pretty steep learning curve. The first time I drove a stud car, was like, whoa, this thing is like, you can't use the brakes. You have to like literally like Scandi flick it, put it in there at a freaking 90-degree angle, get it to slow down. But then also that 90-degree angle turns into the exact point you want to accelerate towards.
Okay. All right. Now, Manny, I'm really want to ask you drifting questions because Tom's buddy Andy Smedegard is now looking to go drifting, and I feel like he didn't have enough car control issues while he was doing GLTC, so he went to go seek car control at its most extreme, which to me from the outside is drifting. So what have you been able to apply from your time drifting, even as a street hooligan, to your now wheel-to-wheel racing life?
Well, let me clarify this. I was street hooligan, yes, but I've learned over time that had to phase out. Again, in Puerto Rico, we drifted on the track as well. I was able to win a competition, thankfully, and it's almost everything transfers over. The biggest thing, obviously, is car control, but the vision changes completely. The way you attack corners is way different as well. Because in a drifting sense, you don't really go for apexes unless it's called, like they call it clipping points. But in drifting, you want to be drifting way earlier. You technically want to be drifting in the straight. Like, I know both of you guys are familiar with NJMP Lightning, so I'll use this one because all three of us can have a good visual of it. So turn 7, the left-hander at Lightning. If I were to take that drifting, I would initiate a little bit before the bridge, and depending on what line I want to take, I would be way track left before the bridge, flicking it the other way, and then transitioning the car over to, like Tom said, almost 90 degrees if possible. All the way through those brake markers, I'd be on throttle and then slowly but surely hit the apex of 7 and then track way out. That would be the quote-unquote ideal drifting line through that turn. Now, drifting is a weird motorsport in the sense that it is not timed, and it is a judged sport. So things that they will judge would be line, speed, and proximity. The closer you are to somebody, the better it is. The faster you can go and the most angle you can carry will determine how smoothly you can hit the corner. By the way, if you have different questions, feel free to ask them before I keep going on.
No, go ahead.
Throttle application. One big one that is really, I found very, very interesting is left foot braking. Left foot braking is really, really big and can be very, very useful in road racing. Specifically for you in Hondas, it is a game changer. Now, in a drifting sense, it's a little weird because you'll use it to maintain the line and make the car pivot. You can be full throttle and hold the brake slightly, and it'll slow you down enough that if you're following somebody, you're not going to hit them. But as soon as you release the brake, if they start going, you're going to catch up with them. Now, in a road racing sense, specifically in a front wheel drive Honda, I had to do it because Dylan likes his car very, very loose. So I would find myself literally just putting a little bit of input into the steering wheel, and the car was already rotating. So I would just gently tap the brake to bring that weight forward and have the car do what I needed it to do to make the corner. So there's different skills that will translate, and it also helps because since you're trying to be at the extreme from the get-go, full tires, dude. In a race setting, if you can't control a slip, you're gonna drop way too many positions.
Oh,
yeah. And I found that one the hard way.
Well, my region in particular, off the standing start, we're within 1 second of our fastest laps. That's how we race. I haven't looked at the timelines or the timesheets for GLTC, but I would assume it's pretty similar because their racing's pretty tight. You got to get used to playing on cold tires and managing it and still being fast. Mm-hmm. So,
big time. Yeah.
Yep.
So to wrap this up a little bit, it looks like as we evolve, we're really still looking at vision overall. We're looking at evolving that vision and awareness, and then working on car control the whole time. And then really nitpicking some little things here or there, but really vision awareness and car control are what we're trying to evolve ourselves through to get to wheel racing. Do you think I missed anything in wrapping it up that way?
I think it's important you don't underemphasize the off-track stuff. I'm glad we mentioned that because whether you're autocrossing or at any level on a road course, drifting, I've got to do plenty of drifting, whatever it is, the off-track stuff between driver diligence and planning and using your resources and reviewing video and data. I kind of slipped up the first year that I was doing GLTC because I was so focused on both driver coaching for others and just like getting through the weekend for myself. I never looked at my own video or data. And I think that was a huge missed opportunity. So when you feel you're at that level, kind of be honest with yourself about where you are with your own driving journey, but also be aware that those resources and that off-track stuff are also super, super important. And then I kind of like that we laid out, autocross, hpde, time trial, wheel to wheel, that path, that ladder system, it does all have its own legitimacy and it all has its own value to the next thing, whether you're going from one to the other or one to the next, up, down the ladder, however you want to think of it. They all have their own big value and challenges that are unique to the thing, but also affect the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the last thing that I can add, which would also fall under vision, is like autocross, drifting teaches you where you have to place the car a little bit in a different manner, but the layout won't always be the same. Now you have to some degree, imagine where you're going to place that car and at what point you're going to switch from side to side. And that will only be determined if your eyes are pointed exactly where you want to go. Because where your head turns, the car and like your body and the car will follow. And to kind of switch it up in terms of discipline, motorcycle racing. I don't know if you guys ride motorcycles.
Absolutely, all day.
You do? Absolutely. Awesome. Then you, sir, you might more than likely. I know Tom has. I've watched a few races of you, Tom. You have really good vision in terms of traffic management. But riding motorcycles, even just in a regular setting on the street, teaches you to anticipate what other cars are going to be doing. And drifting does the exact same thing. You'll be focused on either his front tires, the inputs that he's doing on the steering wheel if you're like right tucked in with him, and you'll be able to pick up what his car is going to do even before they do it. Same with motorcycles. Like if you can train yourself to look way ahead, you'll be able to find some type of line or passing point to your advantage.
Yeah, I could probably do a whole podcast on riding motorcycles in the DC area because that's where I am, and how made my awareness. Like, I grew up here, Tom. I rode motorcycles here. Like, this is, you have to be so aware. So,
dude, Florida and I-4, Orlando.
You guys like to do a lot of straight line stuff. I can't deal with that. Guys,
I really would like to ride a motorcycle on the track. That would be cool.
I might have one. I'll have to clean the carbs on it, but maybe you could take it out if you want. All right.
Let me know.
Gentlemen, I really appreciate your time. We're at over an hour and 15. Thanks for joining me to talk about this subject and to sort of educate the masses. I have an audience that's in autocross, in hpde, doing time trials and racing, and we all have opportunities to do various disciplines every year. And I want to know what I need to work on when I do those things. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. It's been awesome.
Thanks for having us, dude. Really appreciate it.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.